Hey yo, what's up guys? It's Throttleaholic back again with another video, and today I figured that I would do a little video on how to ride a motorcycle. Alright, so we're gonna go over some of the basic controls real quick. Like over here on the left hand side, the left handlebar, we have our clutch. The clutch is what you use to engage or disengage to change your gears. Of course, over here we have our high beams, low beams. Every bike is different. They're kind of in the general area, but every bike's a little bit different. This big button right here is the horn, of course, and the little black one at the bottom is the blinker. And whenever you do the blinker, say I clicked it left, the left blinker comes on. The blinkers on bikes don't go off automatically, so you have to press it in to turn it off. Same thing with the right blinker. Press it in, turn it off. Over here on the right handlebar, we have, of course, the throttle. This is the front brake, our engine kill switch, which they make big, bright, and red, so that way you know where it's at. And then down here is our electric start button. So whenever you are riding, whenever you're driving a car, you know you have one pedal that hits all your brakes at once. On a bike, it's a little bit different. Your front brake is up here, which is what you're going to use a majority of the time, because when you are slowing down, the weight is shifting to the front of the motorcycle. So therefore, 80% of your stopping power is actually in the front brake. Your back brake is right down here on where your foot goes. This is your right foot, so both brakes are on the same side. Front brake, rear brake. Over here on this foot peg where your left foot goes is your actual shifter. So a lot of bikes, the original sprocket cover that was here actually had a diagram on it that showed the gears. If you haven't heard by now, bikes are generally 1 down, 5 up. In between first and second is your neutral gear. So if I pull in my clutch, right now it's in neutral. If I pull in my clutch and I go down, it's now in first gear. If I go all the way up, it's in second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And then all the way back down to first. In between first and second, there's a half click. In between first and second, there's a half click, and that's what your neutral is. So I can probably try to put a diagram up on the screen. You know, it'll be first, neutral, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. But you got to remember that neutral is in between them. We've kind of gone over the basic controls and what buttons are where. Some bikes, newer bikes, come with a gear indicator and will actually show you what gear you're in. This bike did not, so I have one that I installed that's aftermarket right here that goes through the gears and shows you what gear you're in. Some bikes, newer, older, it all depends. Every bike's different. This one has a digital speedometer right there, and this is our tachometer, so that's just the RPM gauge. And of course we have a gas gauge, a temp gauge, a clock, and our total mileage, as well as trip mileage if you just press the button and switch it. Someone that's never ridden, I recommend starting in a parking lot like such. I'm in an empty parking lot right now, so this is a great place to actually get on the bike and learn how to go, because the hardest part about riding a bike is just getting going. So you come around here into a parking lot, have a buddy that has a bike, or maybe you bought your first bike, have a buddy ride it out to the parking lot so you can practice there, and just get on it and just kind of like play with it. So when you shift down in the first and you want to start going, every bike's a little different. Whenever you start releasing this clutch, you're going to find what we call the friction zone. See, there's mine right there. Of course, I have shorty levers, so it's a little bit different, but that friction zone is basically when that clutch plate is starting to disengage and allow the transmission to have power, therefore making the bike move. So get on your bike, put it in first gear, start letting out that clutch slowly, and the bike will start to go. And then eventually you let it out all the way, and then your bike's just coasting by itself. 4 miles an hour, that's coasting. Now I'm giving it a little bit of throttle just to kind of get it up and going. And of course, when it's time to shift to second, let off the gas, pull in the clutch, shift up in the second, and then of course let off that clutch and let on the gas at the same time. whenever you are letting go of the gas, pulling in the clutch, and shifting the gear, it's always got to be a fluid motion. And there are more advanced techniques. I'm not sure if I'd call it advanced, but it's advanced for a new rider. Stuff like downshifting. That's stuff that you can watch in another video, or maybe I can release a video about that in the future. And so whenever you're coming up to a stoplight or you need to stop, you can, in theory, pull in your clutch, and now the bike's technically in neutral, and then you can, pull on your front brake, push on your back brake at the same time, even amount, and bring it all the way to a stop. And while you are doing that, you do want to make sure that you get the bike back into neutral. Just because if you're in first or you're in second or something like that, and you're at a stoplight and you just let that clutch go, it's going to kill the bike. It happens all the time though, whenever you're starting out and you're learning, so it's completely normal if you do it a few times, no biggie. But I want to try to give you those tips and tricks to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. So what I do whenever I'm coming to a stoplight or a stop sign is I will downshift. As I am slowing down, decreasing my speed, I am downshifting into the next gear lower. And whenever you downshift, it does something called engine braking. And engine braking slows you down, so that way you don't have to use your front and back brakes. So that way you're putting less wear and tear on the brake pads themselves, and you're letting the engine do the work for you. And so everything wants to be as fluid as possible whenever you're riding. Whenever you're going, you start off in first, you get going, you're getting up to speed, it's time to shift in the second. So you will let off that gas, pull in the clutch, shift up into second, let off the clutch while giving it a little bit of gas. It's all fluid motion, and it sounds like a lot, it really does, but to be honest with you, it happens in a split second, and once you learn it and you get it down, it's just natural to you. You don't even really think about it. And it's the same thing with downshifting, but a little bit different. And so whenever you are going about 5 miles an hour, maybe under 10, you turn your handlebars left, you go left, you turn it right, you go right. But once you are up to speed and you are moving, it no longer works that way. On a motorcycle, we have something called counter steering, and y'all have probably heard this term a lot before, and it basically is what it sounds like. You are steering, it's a counter of what you think it would be. You're steering the opposite way. Ultimately, if I want to go right, I am going to push on my right handlebar. If I want to go left, I push on my left handlebar. It's a little weird. So for instance, I want to switch lanes, so I'll turn my blinker on, and then I'm going to push my right handlebar right, like push it forward. And it made me go right, it made me lean. And so the same thing happens when you push on the left handlebar. You push on the right, it'll take you right. You push on the left, it'll take you left. And you can do the same thing, but like pulling, So if you were to pull on the right handlebar, it's essentially pushing on the left, pushing the left forward, so you could go right. So you can steer with one hand. You can be on the bike one hand and be able to do your thing just by, pushing or pulling. But it's ideal to have both hands on the steering wheel, obviously. Or not steering wheel, but handlebars. And that's literally just me pushing on my handlebars. Pushing, pushing, pushing. So counter steering is a big thing. It is the only thing to do whenever you're riding. And it's definitely something you're going to have to learn, because if you're going fast and you're coming up to a turn and you try to turn your handlebars like you would on a bicycle, or like you would whenever you're going slow on a motorcycle, it is going to take you the exact opposite direction, and you will go right into a wall or another car. So like right now, I want to go left, I want to get into my next lane, so I push on the left handlebars, and then I push on the right ones to counteract myself and bring me back up right. And a lot of people think that balancing on the bike is one of the hardest things to do. But to be honest with you, it keeps itself up. But you only have to balance on the bike whenever you're going 5 miles an hour or less. When you're at a stoplight and when you're taking off. But as soon as you get going, there's a great thing called centrifugal force that'll keep you upright. It'll keep you going. And if your bike is ever falling over, like for instance, let's say that you're in a curve, right? You're taking a curve and you're leaning, which is something that once you start riding and you get more skill under your belt, you'll be able to do. And say you're leaning around a curve, you know, leaned over, and your bike feels like it's falling over too much. Now, if that's the case, you can just give it a little bit of throttle, and that bike will stand right back up. And it's the same thing, but the opposite way. If you feel like your bike is standing too upright, and you need to be leaning more on that curve, then you can actually roll off the throttle, and it'll bring you back down, back closer to the ground. Bit of a learning curve, you know. It's scary at first, I won't lie to you. When you get on the bike, you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm getting on the highway, I'm getting around other cars, I don't want to fuck up, I don't want to wreck the bike, you know, I don't want to run into a car because I can't brake, you know. There's lots of questions, lots of things that can happen, and that's why I highly recommend going to a parking lot. Start in the parking lot, just learn how to get on the bike, start it, learn all the controls, get familiar with them, and then put it in first gear and just take off. You know, just put around the parking lot, you know, going 10, 15 miles an hour. You know, if it's an empty parking lot, there's nobody around, well, then you could get it up in the second gear, maybe even third gear, and go, you know, 25, 30 miles an hour or something, and just kind of get the feel of shifting through a few gears. And of course, whenever you're braking, you want to be as smooth as possible. Just like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to shifting, you know, I said everything needs to be as smooth as possible, and that's 100% correct. Whenever you are braking, you want to be as smooth as possible. You know, if you've ever drove a car before, you know what I'm talking about. You slam on your damn brakes, everybody flies forward. Except if you do it on a motorcycle, you don't have nothing holding you to a seat. You're flying over your handlebars. You want to look out for what's in the road. No potholes, no debris, no ladders, no tables, no chairs. Don't hit none of that stuff. Just go around it. And whenever you're stopping and you're slowing down, you know, be as easy as possible. And so like right now I'm going around this corner and I'm just pushing on my right handlebar. Push the direction you want to go. So we're coming up on a curve here, so I'll be able to show you again. Pushing on the left handlebar, pushing it forward, it's making it go. So if I let go, I'm going straight. If I push on it, I'm turning. So you just want to gradually push on it, and you'll feel it as you're in the turn. You'll feel how much you need to be pushing and how much you need to be pulling. So for instance, I am stopping here, complete stop. When I go to take off, I'm letting out the clutch. I feel that friction zone, and then I start giving a little bit of gas. You know, if you don't want to start on a motorcycle, that's fine. You can always go get a dirt bike and learn on it where it's a little bit safer before you actually get a motorcycle, so that way those skills can translate. You can also get a little pit bike if you want, like a little 50cc pit bike, and ride that around just so you can get used to being on two wheels. I'm going to pull into this park real quick just to kind of show y'all what I mean about turning the handlebars at a low speed. And you know, of course, you've seen while I'm on the road how counter steering comes into effect and how you turn it whenever you're going high speeds. Alright, so see, I'm turning to the left to actually go left. And of course, when you're backing up, that's a given. So, recap, bike's on, we're in neutral, kickstand's up. So what I'm going to do is pull in the clutch, shift down into first. Now the bike's in gear. It's ready to go. Now I can let off of this clutch, slowly find that friction zone, it starts to move. Now remember when I said you can just slowly release it and the bike will go up to about 5 miles an hour, but it takes a while. So when you find that friction zone and that bike starts moving, start giving it just a little bit of gas. This play in the throttle, so that's not doing anything. That's where the slack takes up, and then it starts to actually engage. So start letting it out, start slowly engaging that gas at the same time, fully let out that clutch, and now you're moving. And so look, I turn my handlebars to the left and to the right to actually go left and right because I'm going low speeds. Come to a stoplight, pulling that clutch to disengage it. Come to a stop. Look both ways for the cars. And we are good. Let out that clutch, give it some gas. Start rolling. Off the gas, in the clutch, shift up. Clutch, gas, shift. Clutch, gas, shift. Just like that. Alright guys, that is it for today's video. I gotta cut this one a little short. There's a lot more that I kind of wanted to cover. There's a lot more in-depth, more advanced stuff that I would like to get into. Maybe I'll make another video on that. But for now, I really just wanted to go over the basic controls, basic maneuvering, and just basically how to get up and get on the road. To try to get more people into it. Try to make you more confident in it. Yeah, so I mean, that's pretty much it for today, guys. I really appreciate y'all coming along. This is probably my 5th or 6th video. My channel's relatively new, but it's growing, and that's all that I can ask of it. The more of you guys that watch these videos, the more of you that like it, comment on it, subscribe to my channel, the more I can grow, the more I can make these videos. So hopefully I will see you guys next week. I tend to make a video every week, sometimes 2 or 3 a week. But hopefully I can see you guys next week with another video. Not too sure on what that's going to be yet, but we will find out when we get there. But other than that, you guys ride safe out there.